The rain hammered against the tall windows of the Blackwood mansion, like angry fists trying to break through glass that cost more than most people's entire homes. The sound echoed through the empty hallways, creating a lonely rhythm that matched the beating of a broken heart. Inside the grand living room with its golden chandelier and marble floors, 6-year-old Sophia Martinez knelt like a tiny servant girl from old fairy tales. Her small hands, which should have been holding toys or crayons, instead gripped a scrubbing brush that was far too big for her delicate fingers. The brush was rough and hard, made for grown-up hands, not for a child who still needed help tying her shoes. Tears rolled down Sophia's rosy cheeks like little rivers of sadness, mixing with the dirty, soapy water that pooled around her knees on the cold marble floor. The heavy metal bucket beside her was filled with water that had turned gray and smelled like old socks and harsh cleaning chemicals. The smell burned her nose and made her eyes water even more than they already were. Her knees ached from kneeling on the hard floor for what felt like hours and hours. They were red and bruised, with marks that looked like tiny purple flowers blooming on her pale skin. Her back hurt, so much it felt like someone had tied heavy rocks to her shoulders. Every muscle in her little body screamed for rest, but she knew better than to stop working. "My arms are tired," Sophia whispered so quietly that the words barely made any sound at all. Her voice was like the whisper of wind through leaves, so soft that only she could hear it. "Please, I need to rest. Just for a minute. Just for one tiny minute." But she knew that no one cared about her tired arms or her aching back or her burning knees. She was all alone in this big, cold house with someone who was supposed to love her, but instead treated her like she was nothing more than dirt on the bottom of an expensive shoe. Standing over little Sophia like a dark storm cloud was Isabella Blackwood, her new stepmother. Isabella was 32 years old and looked like the kind of woman who appeared in fashion magazines. She was tall and thin with long blonde hair that she kept perfectly styled even when she was at home. Her skin was smooth and pale, like expensive china, and she always wore makeup that made her look like a painted doll. Today she wore an expensive black dress that probably cost more money than most people made in an entire month. The dress hugged her body in all the right places and made her look elegant and sophisticated. Her long red fingernails, painted the color of fresh blood, tapped impatiently on her folded arms. The sound they made was sharp and annoying, like the clicking of an angry insect. Isabella's green eyes were the most frightening thing about her. They were not the warm green of summer grass or peaceful forest leaves. Instead, they were cold as winter ice, sharp as broken glass, and filled with a meanness that seemed to come from somewhere deep and dark inside her soul. When she looked at little Sophia, those eyes held no warmth, no kindness, no love. They looked at the child with disgust and hatred, as if Sophia was something dirty that had crawled in from outside. Her painted red lips, the same color as her fingernails, formed a cruel smile that had no happiness in it at all. It was the kind of smile that made children have nightmares. "Stop whining like a baby," Isabella snapped, her voice as sharp and cutting as broken glass. Each word came out like a tiny knife, designed to hurt and wound. "You think because your father has money, you can be lazy like some kind of princess? Think again, you spoiled little brat. In this house, everyone works for their keep, even annoying children like you who do nothing but take up space and waste air." Her voice got louder and meaner with each word, filling the huge room and bouncing off the walls like angry echoes. Sophia flinched at the harsh words, her small body trembling like a leaf in a strong wind. She wanted to tell Isabella that she was not being lazy, that she had been working for hours without any food or water, that her whole body hurt so much she could barely move. But fear kept the words trapped in her throat like butterflies caught in a jar. She had learned from painful experience that talking back to Isabella only made things worse. Much worse. Sophia's father, Marcus Blackwood, was one of the richest and most powerful men in the entire city. He owned factories that made cars, tall buildings full of offices where hundreds of people worked, and businesses that stretched across the whole country like a giant spider web. His name was in newspapers and magazines, and people treated him with respect and fear wherever he went. But all of his money and power meant nothing when it came to protecting his little daughter from a monster he had married. Marcus traveled constantly for his work, flying from city to city in his private airplane, staying in the most expensive hotels, and making business deals worth millions of dollars. He told himself that all of this hard work was for Sophia, that he was building an empire that would take care of her for the rest of her life. But the truth was that work had become his way of hiding from the pain of losing his first wife, Sophia's real mother. When he buried himself in meetings and contracts and business plans, he did not have to think about the empty space in his heart or the way Sophia's eyes sometimes looked sad and lost. Isabella had married Marcus just 6 months ago, right after Sophia's real mother died in a terrible car accident that happened on a rainy night much like this one. Maria Martinez had been the love of Marcus's life, a kind and gentle woman who filled their home with laughter and warmth. She had long dark hair that smelled like flowers, soft brown eyes that sparkled when she smiled, and hands that were always warm when she touched Sophia's face. When Maria died, it was like all the light went out of their world, leaving behind only darkness and silence. At first, Isabella had been like an angel sent from heaven. She met Marcus at a charity dinner, where rich people came to feel good about giving money to help poor children. She wore a beautiful white dress and spoke in a soft, sweet voice about how much she loved children and how she dreamed of being a mother someday. When Marcus introduced her to Sophia, Isabella knelt down to the little girl's level and spoke to her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Hello, beautiful princess," Isabella had said, her voice like honey and music. "I have heard so much about you from your daddy. He loves you more than anything in the whole wide world. Did you know that?" She had brought Sophia presents, expensive dolls with real hair, pretty dresses with ribbons and lace, and a music box that played soft lullabies. For the first few months, Isabella was everything Sophia had dreamed a new mother could be. But the moment Marcus left town on his first business trip after the wedding, Isabella's mask came off like makeup being washed away in the rain. She showed her true nature, cold, cruel, and filled with a bitter jealousy toward the little girl who reminded her every day that she was not Marcus's first love. The pretty presents disappeared, replaced by harsh words and impossible chores. The sweet voice became sharp and cutting. The gentle touches turned into painful pinches and pushes when no one was looking. Now, as the rain continued to pound against the windows, Sophia scrubbed the same spot on the floor over and over again. Her arms felt like heavy lead weights hanging from her shoulders. Every movement sent sharp pains through her small body. The cleaning chemicals had made her hands red and raw, with tiny cracks in the skin that burned like fire. She had been working since early morning with no breakfast, no snacks, and only a few sips of water when Isabella was not watching. The heavy wooden door at the front of the house suddenly burst open with a loud bang that echoed through the mansion like thunder during a storm. The sound was so unexpected and so powerful that it made both Sophia and Isabella jump. Marcus Blackwood stepped inside, bringing with him the smell of rain and the cold night air. His expensive gray suit was soaked through, making the fabric stick to his tall, strong body. His dark hair, usually perfectly styled for business meetings, was messy and dripping with rainwater. His brown eyes, which could be warm and gentle when he looked at Sophia, were tired and worried from his long trip. Marcus had been in meetings all day in another city, discussing a new factory that would create hundreds of jobs. But something deep in his heart, some kind of father's instinct, had told him he needed to come home early. He could not shake the feeling that something was wrong, that Sophia needed him. So he had left his meeting early, ignored his business partner's surprised faces, and caught the first flight home. Now, as he walked into his living room, his footsteps stopped completely. His face went as pale as white paper. His mouth opened, but no words came out. His eyes grew wide with shock and disbelief. There, on the floor in front of him, was a sight that broke his heart into a million tiny pieces. His precious little girl, his beautiful daughter who should have been playing with toys or watching cartoons, was on her knees like a servant. She was scrubbing the marble floor with her tiny hands, her small body shaking with exhaustion. Her face was red and swollen from crying. Her pretty dress was dirty and wet from the soapy water. She looked like a sad little ghost of the happy child she used to be. "What in God's name is this?" Marcus roared, his voice so loud and powerful it made the crystal chandelier above them shake and tinkle like tiny bells. His eyes blazed with fury that seemed to fill the entire room with fire. He looked from his daughter to his wife, and Isabella could see something dangerous and protective awakening in his gaze. It was the look of a father bear whose cub was being threatened, the look of a man who would destroy anyone who dared to hurt his child. Isabella jumped in surprise, her confident mask slipping for just a moment to reveal the scared and guilty person underneath. She had not expected Marcus home for another week. Her mind raced like a speeding car as she tried to think of an excuse, a lie that would save her from the consequences of what she had been doing. She could see the rage building in Marcus's eyes like a volcano about to explode, and she knew she had to act fast to save herself. Sophia looked up at her father with hope shining in her dark eyes like stars in a night sky. For the first time in months, she felt a tiny spark of happiness. Her daddy was home. Her strong, powerful daddy who could fix anything and make everything better. She wanted to jump up and run to him, to throw her small arms around his neck and tell him everything that had been happening. But fear kept her frozen in place like a statue made of ice. Isabella had threatened her so many times, saying terrible things would happen if she ever told her father the truth. "If you ever tell your daddy what happens when he's gone," Isabella had hissed like a snake just last week, "I will make sure you disappear forever. I will tell him you were a bad girl who ran away, and he will never look for you because he will think you do not love him anymore." The threat had worked perfectly, keeping Sophia silent even when she wanted to scream for help. Isabella quickly put on her sweetest smile, the fake one she had practiced in the mirror hundreds of times. She rushed to Marcus's side with small, careful steps, like a dancer performing for an audience. She wrapped her arms around his wet body and spoke in the soft, caring voice she used when other people were watching. The voice sounded like music, but Sophia knew it was all pretend, like an actress in a play. "Oh, darling, you're home early. What a wonderful, wonderful surprise." Isabella's voice was so sweet, it could have given someone a stomach ache from too much sugar. She pressed her body against Marcus and looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Then she gestured toward Sophia with a gentle laugh that sounded like tinkling bells. "Look at our little angel. She wanted to help me clean today. She said she wanted to learn how to take care of our beautiful home like a good girl. Isn't that just precious?" I tried to tell her she didn't need to work so hard, that she should go play with her toys instead, but you know how determined children can be when they get an idea in their heads. Marcus looked at his wife with suspicion, growing in his mind like weeds in a garden. Something felt very wrong about this whole situation. The pieces did not fit together like they should. Why would his daughter, who had always been afraid of getting dirty, suddenly want to scrub floors? Why did Sophia look so scared and exhausted if this was just innocent play? Why were there tears on her face if she was having fun? He walked over to Sophia with slow, careful steps and knelt down beside her on the cold marble floor. When he reached out to touch her small shoulders, he could feel how much she was trembling. Her whole body shook like a leaf in the wind. Her tiny hands were red and raw from the harsh cleaning chemicals, with small cuts and scrapes that had not been there when he left for his trip. Her knees were bruised and dirty from kneeling on the hard floor for hours and hours. His heart broke into pieces as he realized what had really been happening in his home while he was away working and making money. "Sophia, sweetheart," Marcus said as gently as he could, making his voice soft and warm like a cozy blanket. "Look at Daddy. Look right into my eyes and tell me the truth. Did you really want to clean the floor today? Did you ask to do this work?" His brown eyes were full of love and worry as he studied his daughter's face, looking for any sign of what she was really feeling. Sophia's bottom lip quivered like a flower petal in a breeze as she looked between her father and Isabella. She could see the stepmother's green eyes sending her a warning that said, "Don't you dare tell him anything, or you will be very sorry." The fear was like a cold hand wrapped around her throat, making it hard to breathe and impossible to speak the truth. Her voice came out as barely a whisper, so quiet that Marcus had to lean closer to hear her. I wanted to help," Sophia said, but the words sounded hollow and empty, like an echo in a cave. They had no real feeling behind them, no happiness or excitement that should come with a child talking about something they enjoyed doing. Marcus could hear the fear hiding behind those few words. He could see the terror in his daughter's dark eyes, the same kind of fear he had seen in the eyes of employees who were being bullied by cruel bosses. The realization hit him like a punch to the stomach, knocking the breath out of him. Marcus had built his business empire by learning to read people, by seeing through lies and discovering the truth behind fake smiles. He knew when someone was trying to trick him, and he could always tell when people were not being honest. Now, looking at his own daughter, he could see all the signs of a child who had been hurt and frightened into silence. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in his mind, creating a picture that filled him with rage and guilt and heartbreak all at the same time. "That's enough lies," Marcus said, standing up slowly from the floor. His voice was deadly calm, which was much scarier than when he'd been yelling and shouting. It was the voice he used in business meetings when he was about to destroy a competitor, cold and controlled and full of dangerous power. He looked straight at Isabella with eyes that seemed to see right through her fake smile and sweet words. "Pack your things. All of them. You have exactly 1 hour to get out of my house and out of our lives forever." Isabella's fake smile disappeared completely, melting away like ice cream in the summer sun. Her beautiful face twisted with anger and hatred as she realized that her game was over, that all her lies and pretending had been discovered. She had married Marcus for his money and his power, dreaming of a life filled with expensive clothes and fancy parties. She had planned to slowly push Sophia out of the picture, maybe by sending her away to a boarding school or by convincing Marcus that his daughter did not love him anymore. But now her dreams of being rich and powerful were crashing down around her like a house made of cards. "You can't throw me out like garbage," Isabella screamed, her voice becoming ugly and harsh, showing the real person who had been hiding behind the sweet mask. "I'm your wife. I have rights. This is my home too now." Her face turned red with anger, and she looked like a completely different person from the gentle woman Marcus thought he had married. "That little brat has been lying to you. She's trying to turn you against me because she's jealous that you love me now." But Marcus was not listening to her angry words anymore. He was already bending down to pick up Sophia in his strong arms, lifting her away from the dirty floor and the bucket of gray water and the painful memories. The little girl felt as light as a feather in his arms, much too light for a child her age. When had she gotten so thin? When had she started looking so fragile and scared? He held her close to his chest, feeling her small heart beating fast like a frightened bird. Sophia buried her face in her father's neck and started to cry, but these tears were different from the ones she had been crying all day. These were not tears of sadness and pain and fear. These were tears of relief, of joy, of finally feeling safe again after months of being alone and scared. Her daddy had come home and saved her from the nightmare that her life had become. She wrapped her tiny arms around his neck and held on tight, afraid that if she let go, this might all turn out to be just a dream. Marcus carried his daughter toward the stairs, not even looking back at Isabella as she continued to scream and shout behind them. His voice was cold as winter ice when he spoke without turning around. "Security will escort you out. I'm calling them now. And if you ever come near my daughter again, if you ever try to contact us or hurt her in any way, I will use every bit of power and money I have to make sure you regret it for the rest of your miserable life." As they climbed the stairs together, Sophia could hear Isabella's angry voice getting quieter and quieter until it finally disappeared completely. Her father's footsteps were steady and strong, carrying her away from the cold marble floor and the harsh words and the fear that had been her constant companion for so long. When they reached her bedroom, Marcus sat down on her little pink bed and held her in his lap like she was the most precious treasure in the world. "I'm sorry, baby girl," Marcus whispered into her hair, his voice breaking with emotion. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here to protect you. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening. Can you forgive your daddy for being so blind and stupid?" His own eyes filled with tears as he realized how badly he had failed as a father. He had been so busy making money and building his business that he had forgotten his most important job, taking care of his little girl. That night, as Marcus tucked Sophia into her bed with her favorite stuffed animals all around her, she finally told him everything. The words came pouring out like water through a broken dam. She told him about the endless hours of cleaning, scrubbing floors and washing windows and polishing furniture until her small body ached all over. She told him about the hunger, how Isabella would send her to bed without dinner if she made even the smallest mistake. She told him about the scary threats, the mean words, and the loneliness of having no one to talk to or play with. With each word Sophia spoke, Marcus felt more and more ashamed of himself. He had been so focused on making money and building his business empire that he had failed to protect the most important thing in his world, his precious daughter. He had trusted Isabella because she was beautiful and charming, but he had not looked deeper to see the cruel person hiding underneath the pretty mask. He promised himself that night that he would never let work come before Sophia again. Never. The next morning brought sunshine and hope for the first time in months. Marcus made some big changes in his life, changes that put Sophia first in everything he did. He hired Mrs. Chun, a kind and gentle nanny who had raised 5 children of her own and knew exactly how to help a little girl heal from such terrible experiences. Mrs. Chun had soft gray hair, warm brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and hands that were always gentle when she helped Sophia get dressed or brushed her long dark hair. Marcus also decided to work from home much more often, setting up a new office in the house, so he could be close to Sophia whenever she needed him. Most importantly, he learned to really listen to his daughter, to watch for signs that something was wrong, and to pay attention to the little things that mattered to a 6-year-old girl. They started having breakfast together every morning, sitting at the kitchen table and talking about dreams and plans for the day. They read bedtime stories every night, with Sophia curled up next to her daddy as he used different voices for all the characters. On weekends, they went on special father-daughter adventures, to the zoo to see the elephants, to the park to feed the ducks, to the ice cream shop for double scoop cones with rainbow sprinkles. Slowly but surely, like a flower growing toward the sun, Sophia's bright smile returned. The fear left her dark eyes, replaced by the sparkle of happiness and trust. She began to laugh again, really laugh, the kind of giggles that filled the big house with joy and music. She started playing with her toys, drawing pictures with her crayons, and singing little songs that she made up as she skipped through the hallways. The scared, sad little girl who had scrubbed floors with tears on her face was slowly disappearing, replaced by the happy, loving child she was meant to be. Years later, when Sophia was all grown up with children of her own, she would remember that terrible time as an important lesson about how families should protect and love each other. She learned that money and big houses and expensive things mean absolutely nothing if there is no real love inside them. A home is not made of marble floors and crystal chandeliers, but warm hugs and gentle words and people who care about each other's happiness. And Marcus learned that being a good father meant so much more than just working hard and buying expensive presents for his child. It meant being present, really present, listening carefully to both words and silence, and always put his daughter's well-being first above everything else in the world. The story of little girl constantly pleaded with stepmother, "My arms are tired," until Millionaire rushed in and became a reminder that love and protection are the greatest gifts any parent can give their child, and that sometimes the most important treasures in life cannot be bought with any amount of money. It showed that real wealth is not measured in dollars and cents, but in the laughter of a happy child, the trust in loving eyes, and the unbreakable bond between a parent and child that can survive any storm and overcome any darkness.